Okay, so now let's see how first we can download the Eigen library and use it with a Visual Studio. So let's search for the Eigen library. Eigen Tux family. So download the latest stable release. It's a zip file. Just download it on the desktop. Now create a new folder and I will call it YouTube tutorial. Let's extract the Eigen library folder into the YouTube tutorial folder. Here you have the Eigen library and you can simply rename the name of the directory into Eigen. Now we need to create a new project in Visual Studio. And let's create a new project into the YouTube directory. It will be a C++ Win32 project. Let's call it tutorial. Follow the wizard and just finish. Precompile header is fine. Okay, so here you have your precompile header, and now I also, for this tutorial, I also want to include IOStream and also include fstream for input and output files. Okay, now I also want to include my Eigen library, so Eigen dance, and also as you can see, Visual Studio doesn't find the Eigen library, so we need to make Visual Studio recognize the library. Let's put the configuration here to release, and for example 64 architecture. Okay, and so now just go to your project properties, C++ general, and here make sure that you have release and x64, or in any case what you put here, and locate your Eigen library directory, copy the path and paste the path into additional include directories, and let's also put a backslash. Okay, hit OK, and now Visual Studio recognizes the library. Okay, now I want to show how you can acquire matrix from CSV file. And first of all, I need to use matrix XD, which are kind of sparse dense matrix in Eigen. So Eigen matrix XD, it's a matrix of double. And also I want to use namespace std. Okay. First of all, I want to create a function that enables me to read a CSV file. This function will be named CSV read, and it will take as an input a matrix of double, and I will call it output matrix. I also need the name of my file, and I will put const in order to avoid a change of this string within my function. And my last input is a stream size input, and is the precision with which I want to acquire the doubles into the matrix. And now let's create the function. First of all, I want to create an object, a class that can read my file, can open my file. So I will create this class input data, and also I want to open for input data my file named file name. Then I want to set the precision, and I will use the precision. Okay. Now let's check if these two commands, if actually the first command is successful. And if it's not successful, this function terminates returning -1. Otherwise, the function will go ahead. So if we go on, we need to create two string variables, file line and file cell. The first will be used to store a line of the file, the second an element of my matrix. Then let's create two integers. First, a previous number of columns initialized to 0. The second will be the number of rows initialized to 0. And the last one, the number of columns initialized to 0. And we will see how I will use them. So first of all, I wanted to see how many lines and columns are into my CSV file, and so I will acquire a line of the file. So I will get a line from input data and store it into file line. So every time that this command is successful, I will initialize the number of columns to 0 and create a string stream, creates a variable string stream, line stream. So we'll make a line stream, string stream named line stream from file line. Then I will need to read each element in the line. So I will use again getLine, line stream, file cell, and so I will read the line stream, my line, and put an element each element into file cell every time that the elements are separated by a comma. I will do this for every element, and for every element I will try just to see if the content is a valid number, catch the result of the command, and if something is wrong I will just return -1. Alright. Otherwise I will simply increment the number of columns by 1, and then at the end I need to check something. So first of all I need in case number of rows is equal to 0, and this happens for the first line, then in this case I need to set previous number of columns equal to number of columns, so that the next command, the next statement is avoided. And because for the other rows, if the previous number of columns is different than the number of columns for the current row, it means that we have at least 2 rows with different columns, and this is not allowed, and so in this case I will just return -1. Here now I needed to increment the number of rows, and I will do it here. Now at this point I have that after this while loop, number of rows is equal to the number of rows of my matrix into the CSV file, and number of columns is equal to the number of columns. So in this case I will close my input data, and I will resize my matrix, and this is Eigen library matrix. I will resize my matrix into a size which is number of rows and number of columns. Then I need to reopen input data using file name. So I will open my file again, set number of rows equal to 0. It's a variable that is not used anymore, and so basically now I will actually acquire the elements into the matrix. So again I will get a line from the file, from file which is stored into input data, and put it in a file line. Every time that this command is successful, then number of columns is set to 0, and I will create again line stream from file line, and I will also create a loop which reads from a line stream and put the element into a file cell, the elements that are separated by a comma. Alright, it's fine. So, but at this point I want to store what I read into my metrics. Number of columns, alright, and I will store file cell. After this command I can also increment the column index by 1, and when this loop is finished I also needed to increment the row index by 1. So at this point, if everything is successful, then I can simply return 0, my standard error code. Okay, so now I want to try my function. And so first of all I want to create I want to create a file to be read, and I will create it into the tutorial directory. It will be a text file which will be renamed in a CSV command separated value file, and I will call it my data. So let's put a random matrix in it, which would be 1.1, 2, 3.3, 4.0. It's my matrix. Okay, here we have my main code. I will create an error for the error code. I will define a matrix called A, and first of all I want to read my CSV file. So the first input is the matrix A, the second is the file name, my data.csv, and the last is the precision that I will take 20 digits. Okay, now I need first to so when you compile the file and copy your program, at this point the program will take this file from the same directory in which the program is, but here in the Visual Studio environment you have to add your file to the resource files. Okay, so now we have my matrix in A, and I want to show my matrix to the terminal. First, I want to do it if the function was successful, so if the output was 0. So if so, I want first to print the size of the matrix, so it will be matrix of rows of a given rows, and here we have x, it means times, and columns given columns. And finally want to close the brackets and return end line. Go to the next line. At this point I want to simply show my metrics. After this I don't want the terminal to close, so I will wait for a random character from the user. Okay, so let's see if everything was correct, and so let's compile. Okay, and let's run the program. And here is my matrix 1.1, 2, 3.3 with an approximation which is of course of at least 20 digits, and 4. And the matrix is a 2 by 2. Of course, if I change my value here, and for example add another line 1.59, then if I run the program again, then I can see the other 2 values, and now the matrix is a 3 by 2. Thanks to the Eigen library, I could also transpose my matrix and do other matrix calculations like in MATLAB. Okay, so in this tutorial I showed how we can acquire a matrix which is stored in an Eigen library variable from a CSV file. In my next tutorial I want to show how to write a matrix to a file. But for now, thank you for watching and see you next time.